The greatest tragedy in life isn't death. It's living with a soul that is already half buried in a vague existence. We often complain that our days are few, but the truth is, we don't have a short life, we just waste a lot of it. Are you truly living, or are you just waiting for a perfect moment that will never arrive? Drawing from the timeless wisdom of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, I've structured this journey into 5 pillars of existence, from mastering your time and building an iron will to finding silence in a world of constant noise. Why do we feel so exhausted? Why do we surrender our happiness to the applause of strangers? This isn't just dry philosophy. It is a mirror held up to your life designed to strip away the distractions and help you reclaim the person you were meant to become before the opportunity rots into regret. Give yourself the gift of these few minutes of stillness. Because if you do not understand the value of your time, you will never understand the value of your soul. Stay with me until the very end, and let's begin the work of waking up. I have always believed that the majority of modern tragedies do not stem from material deprivation or emotional poverty, but from the fact that we do not know what to do with the days of our lives. We are not living incorrectly, but for the most part, we are living vaguely. Some people only waste a few scattered moments in the day, but there are those who drop an entire lifetime without ever realizing what they have lost. Therefore, I view this first group of thoughts as the foundation stone of every philosophy of life. Because if we do not understand the value of time, we cannot understand the value of anything else. When Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with the soul of a philosopher, recorded his admonitions, he had no intention of being profound. He simply reminded himself and those who would come after him that time passes without noise. It neither warns nor pities. Every moment we squander is a part of our life that abandons us forever. It is from this spirit that the philosophical statements in the first group become as sharp as a sword and as gentle as a guiding hand to one who is lost. Rereading this group of thoughts, I feel as though I am standing before a mirror reflecting the present. I see the procrastination, the invisible fears, the meaningless distractions that have pulled me away from the path where I should have progressed much further. And I believe that not only me, but anyone facing difficulties, confusion, or deadlock in life will find a spark in these sayings to clearly see their direction again. I will begin to analyze each sentence as if speaking directly to you, the one who is seeking to reclaim their purpose in these dark days. The first saying in this group of thoughts is a wake-up call. You waste life each time you chase what you cannot control. I believe this is the root cause of so much suffering in life. It is easy for people to be drawn into things they assume are important, but which are actually outside the sphere of their control. We try to control the thoughts of others, try to cling to relationships that no longer want to blossom, try to force the world to operate according to our wishes. And in this futile journey, we forget where life truly passes. The person who is sad, failing, or feeling lost often makes this mistake the most. The more you try to control the uncontrollable, the more helpless you feel. But when you let go, you regain the supreme freedom, the right to mastery over yourself. The only thing we truly control is our inner state. And that is precisely what determines how we live the rest of our lives. Next is the saying, full of gravity. The moment you delay what matters, you surrender your life to chance. I spent many years living in procrastination, thinking I was waiting for a better time, a more complete circumstance to begin something meaningful. But then I realized that every time I delayed, I didn't just drop time. I dropped my right to master my own destiny. When you don't decide, the world will decide for you, and it rarely chooses what is best for you. People who feel depressed or directionless often fall into a state of prolonged procrastination. But I want to say one thing: you don't have to wait to start changing your life. A small step today can create a major turn in the future, even if you don't see it immediately. The third saying, softer yet equally sharp. Do not wait for the perfect hour. The present moment is already enough. All of us are obsessed with an illusion of perfection. We want a better mood, a better environment, a clearer opportunity. But life does not operate according to that logic. Perfection never arrives, or if it does, we don't recognize it. I went through days when I thought I wasn't ready, but those very days were the foundation for the greatest strides in my life. If you are tired, exhausted, or feeling weak, I want you to know that you are still enough. And the moment you are living the imperfect can still become the starting point for a great journey. The user provided an excerpt that was not in the original list for sentence 4, which I will address based on its context. The next sentence touches the essence of purposeful living. Life shrinks when your mind wanders, but expands when you act with purpose. One of the most dangerous spiritual diseases of the modern era is the dispersion of the mind. We are distracted by thousands of stimuli, by social media, by the expectations of others. And when the mind drifts, our life becomes small, narrow, and lifeless. I have witnessed highly intelligent people living like fallen leaves in the wind, drifting and being carried away. The mission does not have to be grand. Just doing something meaningful every day will expand your life in ways you cannot imagine. If you are lost, choose a small purpose, a good deed, a useful action. The power of purpose does not lie in its size, but in its ability to pull you back to yourself. I will continue with the original numbering and address the provided text for the following sentences. The sixth saying reiterates what Stoicism always emphasizes. You cannot lengthen your life, but you can stop wasting the time given to you. This is perhaps one of the simplest but most painful truths. Whether you are rich or poor, strong or weak, you cannot add a single second to the final segment of your life. But you can make every minute you have more complete. Those who are struggling sometimes live as if life will give them infinite days to correct, to restart, to heal. But that is not the truth. The only thing you truly have is today. And if you do not cherish it, you are actively shortening your own life. The next sentence adds a sharp perspective. The world does not rob you of time. Your own distractions do. I used to think I was busy because life was too complicated. But the longer I live, the more I realize that busyness is a choice. Distraction is also a choice. Time is not taken away, it is merely given to things that are unworthy. And those who are in mental difficulty often fall into distraction as a way to escape reality. But I want to advise you that running away never helps you escape. It only makes you return to reality feeling more exhausted. You do not need to become perfectly focused overnight. You just need to start by setting aside a small moment each day to be truly present. The eighth saying is a powerful call to action. Begin where you are with what you have before the opportunity rots into regret. I have met many people who thought they needed a perfect condition to start more knowledge, more money, or a more peaceful time. But life doesn't wait for you. Opportunity doesn't wait for you. And regret is the shadow that always stands right behind the door you never opened. For those who are immersed in difficulty, I want to say that you need nothing other than yourself to begin changing. What you currently have, though scarce, is still enough for you to do something meaningful. No one starts with everything complete, but all successful people start with what they have. Another saying by Marcus Aurelius warns of the harsh nature of time. Time reveals the cost of every wasted hour. What you squander today may not make you feel bad immediately, but time does not forget. It records every delay, every missed chance, every moment you surrendered to fear or fatigue. And then one day you will look back and see that the price paid was not just lost time, but the loss of the very person you could have become. If you are suffering, understand that no matter how tired you are today, you still have the strength to take one small action that will make your tomorrow less heavy. Start protecting your time right now before it becomes a life debt you can never repay. The next sentence is a very clear awakening. To waste life is simply to forget that you are mortal. We procrastinate, we let things slide, we waste, we drop years and months as if we have an infinite supply ahead. But the truth is, all of us are moving closer to the end every day. Recognizing this is not for pessimism, but for living more consciously. When you feel you are losing direction, ask yourself, if I only had 1 year left to live, what would I do differently? Perhaps you would be braver, love more, forgive faster, and start immediately instead of waiting. Realizing the finiteness of life is the strongest remedy to stop wasting it. And finally, the saying that encapsulates this entire group of thoughts. Live so that when your final day arrives, you do not realize too late that you never truly lived. This is not just philosophy, it is an appeal. I have witnessed many people who only look back at the end of their lives and realize they never lived for themselves. They lived according to fear, according to the expectations of others, according to rigid molds. And then they realize they have lost the very life that was given to them. I do not want anyone to fall into that plight. If you are in pain, struggling, feeling that this life is too heavy, I want you to know that you can still begin to truly live right now. Happiness is not found in a life without difficulties. Happiness is found in not letting difficulties prevent you from living fully. Looking back at this first group of thoughts, I see that it is not only for those who want to live efficiently, but also for those who are battling despair. These sayings do not force, nor do they blame. They open a path to return to oneself, to live more meaningfully, to stand firm against the storms of life. None of us knows how much time we have left, but everyone can decide how they will live in every remaining moment. As I transition to the second group of thoughts, I distinctly feel a change in the voice of Marcus Aurelius. If in the first group he spoke of time as an invisible entity passing and invited us to be conscious of it, in the second group he directs his gaze inward. Here Marcus speaks not just about living, but about becoming. He reminds us that no life is built from the outside in. Every lasting change always begins internally. And that inner self, if not cultivated, will become a place of chaos that drags our entire life into disorder with it. During the years when I faced great upheavals in my own life, I realized that self-discipline is not coercion or self-punishment. It is the only path to inner freedom. And that very inner freedom will save us from despair, from fear, and from the utter exhaustion that life sometimes ruthlessly throws at us. Therefore, I view this second group of thoughts as the central pillar upon which a person can stand firm amidst the storms of daily life. I want to delve into each saying like steps that lead us deeper into our own inner world. The first sentence of the group, life shrinks when your mind wanders, but expands when you act with purpose. This saying reminds me of the periods when my mind was so scattered that I no longer knew where I was going or why I was there. I wandered in unconsciousness, chasing one thought after another, only to realize at some point that my life had contracted into a blurred void. But I also experienced the opposite as long as I took an action with purpose, no matter how small, life expanded again. One purposeful step is greater than 10 aimless steps. Therefore, if you are feeling that your life is becoming small, confined, and suffocating, ask yourself, where is your mind wandering? And try to take one deliberate action today. It can be small, but when you do it with clear intention, you will find yourself starting to return to your center. The next saying carries a special power. If you cannot govern your own mind, you will be governed by every trivial impulse. This means that if you cannot rule your mind, you will be controlled by every trivial urge. I have witnessed many people fail not because they lacked talent or opportunity, but because they were slaves to small impulses, a phone notification, a fleeting feeling of laziness, an unwarranted sadness, an unnamed fear all can derail an entire day. Worse still, if repeated long enough, it can derail an entire life. When I fell into difficult periods, I realized my inner self was so fragile that any passing emotion could control me. It was then that I understood that training the mind is not just about becoming strong, but about not being dragged away by things unworthy. If you are feeling weak, it is not because you are inadequate. It is simply because you have not yet learned to stand up to your own mind. And you are fully capable of doing that little by little. The third saying in this group goes straight to the heart of Stoicism. You cannot escape the responsibility of shaping your soul. In the modern age, people are caught up in a strange game, wanting results but not wanting to pay the price. They want peace but refuse to train. They want strength but dare not face wounds. They want happiness but refuse to change. But no one can live your life for you, and no one can build your soul for you. Every day you choose how to live, you are carving a line onto your very spirit. When I think of this saying, I see a clear truth. Growth is not a natural condition of time, but the fruit of responsibility. If you are suffering, you might think you lack the strength to shape your soul, but you are doing it nonetheless, whether consciously or not. So start shaping it in a way that makes you proud. The next sentence carries a clear spirit of discipline. Do not let a single day pass without mastering at least one small part of yourself. This is a powerful, yet not unattainable reminder. Marcus Aurelius does not say you must become perfect immediately. He only says that every day you must be a little bit better. Just a little. That could be controlling an outburst of emotion or completing a task you have always avoided. It could be 1 minute of meditation, 1 page of a book, or 1 kind word directed at yourself. Those facing difficulties often feel the journey of growth is too vast, too distant, too heavy. But you don't need to conquer the entire mountain in one day. You only need to climb one small step further. When you do that, you are rebuilding your strength, even if you don't realize it immediately. The following saying addresses fear, one of the greatest burdens preventing people from moving forward. Your fear of starting is often a greater burden than the work itself. In my life, I have delayed many things, not because I couldn't do them, but because I was afraid to begin. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of not being enough. But when I actually started, I realized the work was not as terrifying as I had imagined. Fear creates a shadow larger than reality. It erects walls that in fact do not exist. For those who are falling into despair, fear can become overwhelming. But I want to say that you only need to take the first step. That is all. That step will break the entire power of the fear, and you will find everything much lighter. The next saying reiterates the simple yet profound nature of life. To live wisely is to recognize how little is needed for a meaningful life. I used to think that to live well, I needed many things: recognition, a comfortable life, many achievements. But the more I live, the more I see that the things that truly bring meaning are incredibly simple. A peaceful mind, a heart free of envy, a healthy body, a small purpose each day. When you are going through difficulties, you will find the world heavy. But that very moment is an opportunity for you to realize that you don't need to carry everything. You only need to keep what is truly important. And when you do that, you will feel life lighten, as if you have just set down a stone that you have carried for too long. And finally, this group of thoughts concludes with the deep saying, you are not free if every discomfort can sway your decisions. This means you are not free if even a little discomfort can make you change your mind. This is the yardstick of inner strength. Freedom is not about being able to do everything you want, but about the ability to not be subdued by discomfort. Those under mental pressure are often highly sensitive to feelings of discomfort, and even a small setback can make them give up. But I want to say that you are much stronger than you think. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the teacher. Every time you step past a minor discomfort, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. And little by little, you will become a person whom external difficulties can no longer easily wound. Looking back at the second group of thoughts, I see it as a journey back inward. The external world can be chaotic, but if the inner self is strong, we can still stand firm. These sayings are not just advice, but also a method for healing. By cultivating yourself a little each day, you not only overcome difficulties, but you also become a stronger person than your former self. When moving to the third group of thoughts, I distinctly feel that Marcus Aurelius is speaking to the deepest part of the human being. The part that knows life is not merely existence, but living with dignity. This group no longer dwells much on time or inner strength, but focuses directly on the core of a valuable life, which is virtue, duty, and honesty with oneself. I once thought that living a meaningful life meant pursuing grand things, achieving accomplishments that others would admire. But then the upheavals in my life taught me that what truly sustains a person is not greatness, but rightness, correctness. A person can be poor, failing, or disadvantaged, but if they live according to their principles, they can still stand tall without shame. And when we go through the most difficult times, it is virtue, not strength or talent, that saves us from despair. In this spirit, I delve into each saying of this group, as if listening to the counsel of a teacher who has personally endured every test of life. The first sentence resonates like a gentle but weighty warning. Every day you avoid your duty, a part of your character dissolves. I have had periods where I avoided what I knew was important. Not because I was irresponsible, but because I was too tired, too frightened, or felt inadequate. But then I realized that every time I turned my back on a duty, no matter how small, I lost a piece of my self-respect. Sometimes that loss was so small that I didn't feel it immediately, but gradually it accumulated and turned into an inexpressible sense of emptiness. For those who are struggling, duty can become a burden pressing down on their shoulders. But remember that duty is not meant to punish, but to protect your dignity. One small step in fulfilling your responsibility can become the rope that pulls you out of the abyss of fatigue. If you won't do it for the world, do it for the person you want to become. Next is the saying that defines a valuable life. A wasted life is nothing more than a life unlived through virtue. I often contemplate the word virtue in the way Marcus Aurelius intended. For him, virtue is not moral perfection, but sincerity with oneself, living without betraying what we believe to be right. During my most uncertain years, I tried to find meaning through success, through recognition, through grand goals. But those things either vanished or left a void when I achieved them. Only living by virtue makes life whole. You don't have to be perfect. You only need to live by the principles you know are right. And sometimes on the worst days, virtue is the only candle illuminating your path. The following saying addresses our attitude toward work and duty. If the work is yours to do it without complaint. Nature favors the willing. I used to complain about the things I had to do, especially during periods of exhaustion. But the longer I live, the more I realize that complaining does not make anything easier. It only makes my mind heavier. When we set aside the lament and get down to work, we find the task becomes much lighter. Nature, in Marcus's words, always favors the willing. When you willingly step into the necessary work, you simultaneously step into the state of truly living. And most importantly, when we complete the tasks we know are our duty, we reclaim the self-respect lost during days of weakness. Another saying goes straight to the core of living by principles. Do not postpone your principles to a more comfortable day. It is often easy for us to live correctly when everything is smooth, but when life becomes harsh, principles are the first things abandoned. I used to do this, sacrificing my own values just to survive the day. But then I realized that when we betray our principles for temporary ease, we pay the price with long-term internal discomfort. You may be in a very difficult phase where living by principle seems like a luxury, but these very times are when true value is tested. A principle held firm during a difficult day has 10 times the strength of holding it during a peaceful day. Next is the reminder about the choice between ease and growth. When you choose comfort over character, you choose decay over growth. I think this sentence needs little explanation, yet it is very hard to accept. Humans naturally want comfort, want to avoid pain, want to choose the easiest path, but prolonged comfort will make us stagnant, obsolete, and weak. I have chosen ease over rightness sometimes, and the consequence is always a feeling of regret. Conversely, the times I chose to do the right thing, even though difficult, became the moments I knew I was growing. For those who are suffering, comfort can seem like a refuge. But you must be cautious, the refuge is sometimes also a trap. Every time you choose strength, despite the difficulty, you are pulling yourself out of the decay of the spirit and into the territory of growth. The next saying addresses the correct kind of comparison. Do not envy those who move quickly, envy those who move correctly. I used to see people who moved very fast, achieved a lot, and I felt slow and inferior. But then I realized that speed is not as important as direction. A person running very fast but in the wrong direction will only reach a destination of meaninglessness. In your own journey, especially when you are tired or weak, you do not need to go fast. You just need to go correctly. Correctness, not speed, is the measure of a meaningful life. If today you only move one small step forward, but it is the right step, you have succeeded. And finally, this group of thoughts touches upon the balance between self and the world. Be strict with yourself, gentle with others, and consistent with your values. I view this sentence as a compass. Strictness with oneself is not self-torture, but self-respect. Gentleness with others is not weakness, but benevolence. And consistency with one's values is the core that keeps us from losing ourselves. When life becomes harsh, we often do the opposite. We are easy on ourselves, hard on others, and wavering in our values. But what Marcus intends to remind us is only when we maintain this order can we live a righteous life. And whether you are in a state of pain or confusion, this righteousness will be the thread that keeps you from sinking. This third group of thoughts reminds me that the meaning of life does not lie in the results we achieve, but in the character we protect. And sometimes the very days of suffering are the time when you can build your most beautiful character. When stepping into the fourth group of thoughts, I feel like entering another room of the spiritual life, a room that modern people rarely venture into. That is the room of silence. Not the silence of sadness, nor the silence of loneliness, but the silence of a soul strong enough not to need external noise to confirm its existence. Marcus Aurelius possessed a very deep intuition about the nature of the inner self. He understood that true peace cannot be found by rushing toward the world. Peace is only found when we have the courage to look within ourselves. But looking within ourselves has never been easy, especially for those who are suffering, who are lost, or who are afraid of their own inner world. Therefore, this group of thoughts becomes an invitation but also a challenge. Turn inward. Dare to be silent. Dare to listen. Because in silence, the truth emerges. And sometimes that truth is precisely what we have been avoiding for too long. I will delve into each saying in this group as if passing through a door leading into the deepest part of human life. The first saying, silence is not empty. It is where the mind returns to its true strength. I remember periods of my life that were saturated with noise. Not just external noise, but also the noise inside my head. The sounds of worry, blame, fear, desires, disappointment. All of them merged into a chaos that prevented me from hearing anything truly important. I thought silence was terrifying, a sign of solitude. But then I realized that silence is where the mind recovers its inherent strength. Silence is not empty at all. It is full of things that sound cannot convey. When I enter silence, I feel the return of myself. A return without clamor, without expectations, without pressure. If you are facing suffering or chaos, try to grant yourself silence, even if only for a minute each day. you will be surprised to find that in that space, a very real strength is waiting for you. That is the strength you lost when you were too busy chasing the noise of life. The second saying in this group continues to expand the depth of contemplation. A life without reflection is a life lived on borrowed intention. This sentence touches upon a painful truth. When we do not reflect on our own, we live according to others' intentions. We are easily dragged along by prejudices, social norms, family expectations, comparisons with friends, or goals that others think are good for us. And when we live that way for long enough, we start to forget that we once had our own intentions, our own desires, our own reasons for living our way. I went through a long time living without reflection. I did what was considered right, but I never asked. Right for whom? Right by what standard? Right for which version of me? And then I found my life starting to feel alien to myself. When difficulties struck, I realized that what made me vulnerable was not the external challenge, but the fact that I did not have a deep enough intention for living to hold on to. I was living on borrowed intentions that did not belong to me. Reflection is not about sitting for hours analyzing one's life. Reflection is simply about asking oneself, what am I living for? Is this truly meaningful to me? Is this making me the person I want to become? When you are suffering or lost, reflection does not make the pain disappear immediately, but it helps you see your path clearly. And sometimes, seeing the path clearly is already a huge step toward escaping the darkness. The fourth group of thoughts, though only 2 sentences long, contains a special power. These sentences do not teach us to be stronger, do not urge us to move faster, and do not ask us to do anything extra. They only ask us to stop, listen, observe, return. In a world where everyone is running, stopping is an act of courage. In a world where everyone wants to speak, silence is an art. In a world where everyone wants to belong to something external, reflection is the path that leads us back to ourselves. I believe anyone going through difficulties needs this group of thoughts as a spiritual medicine. Because sometimes to overcome suffering, we do not need to fight. We only need to sit down and listen. Listen to the pain to understand it. Listen to ourselves to know what we truly want. Listen to the silence to reclaim the strength we thought we had lost. When moving to the final group of thoughts, I feel as if Marcus Aurelius is guiding us out of the still inner world, explored in group 4 to confront a more subtle kind of challenge, the challenge stemming from the gaze of others. In the previous 4 groups, he spoke of time, willpower, discipline, virtue, and silence. But all these things can become fragile if we still live dependent on external applause or slander. Fame and ego are 2 wide-open doors inviting people into delusion. And it is the dependence on others that is the invisible thread pulling us away from our own path. I once thought that reputation and recognition were the measures of value. But the more I live, the more I understand that fame has no capacity to heal pain, nor the power to hold together a soul that is breaking apart. When the storm sweeps over life, the cheers disappear first. Only I remain, and what I truly believe in. This 5th group of thoughts therefore becomes the armor protecting the soul from the instability caused by the public gaze. I will delve into each saying as if entering each layer of the illusion in which people often get lost. The first saying in the group, "He who lives blindly for applause dies the moment the crowd turns away." I vividly remember the feeling the sentence gave me the first time I read it. It was like a mirror exposing a truth I didn't dare touch for many years, that I had once lived for applause, lived to be seen, to be recognized, lived as an actor in my own life. Applause is seductive. It makes us feel valuable, seen, and validated. But when we live only for applause, we surrender our entire soul to the crowd. And the crowd is the fastest changing thing in this world. One day they turn away, not because we got worse, but because they found something else that caught their attention. And the person living for applause dies. At that moment, the death of self-respect, the death of a sense of worth, the death of purpose. If you are feeling invisible, unrecognized, or turned away by the world during your most painful moments, I want to tell you that this is not the end. This is your opportunity to redefine your worth without the noise of others. Your true value is not found in the crowd, but in what you do even when no one is watching. The next saying is like a painful warning about the loss of self. You lose yourself every time you try to be what others desire. I think this is one of the hardest truths to accept. Humans have a need to belong, and thus we easily change ourselves to fit the desires of others. I once changed how I spoke, how I behaved, the goals I pursued, even my deepest dreams, just to fit the image others wish to see. But every time I did so, I lost a part of myself. One time is fine, twice is fine, but after many years I realized I no longer knew who I truly was. The loss of self does not come like a great storm. It comes like drops of water falling on a stone. You don't notice it immediately, but by the time you do, you have been painfully eroded. If you are trying to please someone while your life is in chaos, I want you to know that this is the time you need to be most honest with yourself. Not everyone is worth losing yourself for, and no one is so important that you must sacrifice your very soul to keep them. The following saying is a reminder of consistencies in action. Let your actions be so clear that even your silence carries weight. I love this sentence because it is not about others, it is about us. It says that a person does not need to shout to prove their worth. There is no need to boast to show the world one is strong. Actions that are clear enough, right enough, and consistent enough will carry their own weight. And when actions have said enough, your silence also becomes a message. I once felt I had to explain everything, explain why I chose a different path, why I was silent amidst the noise, why I rejected the expectations others placed upon me. But then I understood that silence only loses its value when we live an unclear life. But if we live correctly, if we do what needs to be done, if our actions are aligned with our values, then even when we say nothing, people will understand. For those who feel misunderstood, misjudged, or pressured to explain themselves while battling difficulties, I want to say you do not owe the world any explanation. You only need to live clearly. That clarity will speak for you. Looking at this entire group of thoughts, I realize an important truth. The greatest human pain is not the pain of failure or injury, but the pain of losing oneself. Fame can mislead you. Ego can deceive you. The gaze of others can make you live a life that is not yours. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us that true freedom is not found in being loved by others, but in not belonging to any eye other than the eye of our own reflection in the mirror. If you are in your darkest phase, this is the best time to return to your essence. In the collapse, the false will fall away, the frivolous will vanish, and only what is truly worth keeping will remain. The fifth group of thoughts closes Marcus Aurelius's journey in a circle, starting from managing time, moving through inner strength, virtue, inner silence, and finally returning to the question, whose life are you living? That is the only question every human must answer in their moment of awakening. We have journeyed through the sharp reminders of Marcus Aurelius on time discipline and the self. But remember, philosophy without action is just dead ink on a page. You don't need to change the whole world overnight. You only need to begin mastering yourself right here in this very moment. If you are walking through your darkest days, see them as an opportunity to strip away the trivial and find your core. Do not let tomorrow slip away as vaguely as today. Choose one thing, just one small action that you will do differently after closing this video. Out of the 5 pillars we've discussed, which one resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts or your story in the comments below. I read them all, and I'd love to hear how these truths reflect in your own life. It's a way for us to remind each other that we aren't walking this path of awakening alone. Thank you for spending your valuable time reflecting on the meaning of life with me. If this message brought you clarity, please hit like and subscribe so we can meet again on the next journey. Live in such a way that on your final day you can smile knowing that you didn't just exist, you truly lived. Until next time.